Welcome to the Augmentation of Man, where we are bringing the future. And this is Renee and Kent Miller who are hosting this.
Yes, we're going to talk about some serious stuff today.
It is serious.
Yeah, Earth changes and things that are coming and how to prepare.
And also we're going to talk about the climate change also, and what our guides are saying is causing the climate change.
It's all related.
It is. It's all related. And so is the restructuring of Earth that we've talked about. So we're going to try and kind of bring it all together.
And we're going to talk about the things that you really need in your emergency packs, but things that we suggest that you need in your emergency packs to keep a pack of these things on hand. So if something does happen, you are somewhat prepared.
At least for the major things.
Yeah.
So we're going to cover a few of those things that we recommend that you think about getting stocked up on, just to make your life a little bit easier should something happen, as far as some of these earth changes are concerned, if they come your way. And so we're going to turn this into a PowerPoint, and
You can share the PowerPoint.
this is climate and earth changes, what the guides have predicted, what they have to say. And so
we concerned about the weather pattern changes and how they're taking place and why.
the ancients call it a weather pattern change, and they've been talking about this since back in, I believe it was 2007. They have informed us that there was going to be weather changes, rain pattern changes, and lots of earth change.
Yeah, climatic change.
So what is the definition of climate?
Well, climate is the prevailing weather conditions as in a particular region, as temperature, air pressure, humidity, precipitation, sunshine, cloudiness, wind throughout the year. But they take an average over several years and say this is what we see is coming or what is happening.
So that's the definition of climate. And so what we're saying when we say climate change is that there's a change in any one or more of these things. So temperature, air pressure, humidity, etc.
Yeah, we were just discussing yesterday the changing of the ocean currents that actually the sun helps change it and different things from outside of Earth. And when this changes, actually the weather patterns change.
Mm-hmm. So like we said, our guides have spoken about this for years of the coming changing weather patterns, that it would become hotter and that the rain patterns would change.
Rain patterns mean it's becoming wetter in some areas and a lot drier than others.
Yes. Yet our spiritual guides, the ancients, have consistently said that this is not due to carbon. So we'll get into what they do say is causing it. What we want to start with is what the normal cycles of weather patterns, how they're created. And according to NOAA, you have a neutral weather season, and then you have El Nino and La Nina climate patterns that develop over the Pacific Ocean, and they affect the weather and climate worldwide.
Yeah.
And these are
the ocean currents.
They're air currents that develop off of the west coast of the Americas, and they move in a westerly direction. So they move toward Australia and Asia in that direction. And they form this pattern where it starts out where the air currents are close to the oceanic surface water. And then as it gets to just north of Australia, there's a massive uptake of this air, and with it, the evaporated water up into the higher atmosphere. And from there, it splits and divides, and part of it goes east and part of it goes west. And then it forms this circular pattern, but then it has other branches that go out over the earth. And when you have a change in the directional pattern, then you have a change in where the rainfall is.
Right, because the surface water temperatures change, which affects the ocean currents.
And yeah, and so you have this interaction between the ocean temperature and the air temperature, and then you have rainfall that is that comes out of that also. And so we recommend you get on the NOAA's website for more information on that. We're just going to touch on it briefly.
Okay.
And so now we get into some messages that we had received. So we were told rain patterns will be changed. And you notice the wording of it.
Will be changed.
Will be changed, not will change, but will be changed.
Yeah, and we can see right now, there are places in the world that are not normal for snow or heavy rain. And there are places in the world that are not normal for extreme dry conditions.
Or it's normally, in the case of like California, normally doesn't get a lot of rainfall, but now they've gone to severe drought.
Yeah, and like Southeast Asia or even Asia, different rains or even snow in winter, things that normally don't happen.
Yeah, and there's flooding going on all over the world. So if, you know, there's a website that has a weekly update of everything that's going on in the world as far as weather and earth-related changes. And that is called, was it Two Preachers?
No, it was Earth, I can't remember, Earth.
No, it was two.
Well, there's two sites.
There's two.
One is Two Preachers and one is Earth. I can't remember, Earth Changes or Earth.
Check out the YouTube for Two Preachers, because they do a weekly update, I think on Fridays. And it's just a visual of all these videos that they collect online and compile them together of things that are happening around the world.
Right, things that are taking place during a particular period in the last 2 or 3 days around the world.
Some massive things are going on. So the guide tells us, ponder what I have given you to a perspective analysis of understanding the rain patterns and DNA sequential changes of pattern and numerical event. So this is not presented in a way that we normally speak. The syntax is different, the language is different, and it's a fluid language. So they take Greek and Latin root words and construct new compound words. So it involves a lot of trying to decipher what the meaning is. So what I'm getting out of this is that the DNA sequential changes due to the pattern, rain pattern changes and numerical events. So when we talk about DNA being upgraded, we're talking about the geometry that's involved in the expression of that DNA being more complicated and more sophisticated to bring about an upgrade in DNA. So I pose this question, how do rain pattern changes relate to DNA changes?
Yeah, so the rain patterns are consequential diagnostic tools for development of various DNA change. So looking at the rain patterns, they are used as a diagnostic tool around the world that shows possible the development, not the change, but the development of the DNA, possibly DNA changes that are happening to all, I would say all organic matter.
Okay. So DNA reacts to vibrational trudence of each pattern. So trudence would be the truth of what makes a thing. And given the variances of many that are available, a tuning fork in its application. And so what they're saying is that even the rain patterns present a variation in vibration. So as the rain patterns change, it's also affecting the vibration of that area. And so there's much more that humanity has to learn as far as how we interact with the earth, how our DNA is dialed into the earth, and how these earth changes are going to affect our DNA in something as simple as the rain patterns changing. It's really hard to wrap your head around something like that.
Water changes everything. Lack of water changes everything.
And if we go to that study that was done, I can't remember, I believe he was a man from Japan, where he used certain words and photographed ice crystals with in the presence of certain words, and those the negative connotation would create a very disoriented pattern, whereas something like the word love would create a beautiful, more organized pattern. And so
water has the same effect.
Yeah, we have to understand that there is some sort of vibrational attunement between the water and ourselves, and our bodies, of course, being very high in water content.
Yeah, so in the head of this is in light of severe drought conditions in the West and resulting fires. And they had to ask, what is causing the changing rain pattern? And the answer is,
so what the ancients had told us was that it's the changing ocean currents, and the outcome is weather changes. Yeah. And so again, we're getting back to this reference to Noah and the air currents, okay, and those air currents interacting with the water currents, and the temperature of the water is going to change the ocean currents.
Yeah, so what's causing the changing ocean currents? It's prolific movement, the extreme movement, mass energy proliferation, causing movement of atmospheric distortion.
And so let's break that down.
Okay.
So a proliferation means it's proliferating. This movement is being heightened. It's exaggerated, and it's being caused by this mass energy proliferation that is coming in toward the earth from outside the earth, causing a movement in our atmosphere.
When she says outside, that could be outside the earth, from anywhere from the possible Milky Way or beyond, or our own sun. It's creating these different effects.
And as you can see here, the next question was, is the mass energy proliferation caused solely by the sun, or is it a combination of other energies, including the sun? And the answer was combination of sources penetrating this sphere. And so I want to add something here, because at one point, one of our guides was telling us some years ago that if you change what's going on in the ionosphere, including the directional pattern of the electromagnetic field, you are going to change the weather. So if you have an incoming energy coming into the earth and it is blowing our ionosphere around and changing the electromagnetic flow, you are also going to have a change in weather patterns. So next, where are we at here?
What's causing the increased volcanic activity? And again, the things that are coming out from outside this sphere, including the sun, increases the volcanic activity, which increases the volcanic activity doesn't increase the tremors and the earthquakes, but the movement of the plates and the tremors increase the volcanic activity, whether the volcanoes out of the ocean or under the ocean.
So they kind of go hand in hand. And again, this is getting back to the atmospheric distortion interacting. So you have an ionized field in the ionosphere, which is charged particles, and taken from another meditation and a lesson that we got years ago, is that ionosphere interacts with the iron core or the magma. And so when you have a some sort of, like, say, CME, or you have some other energy coming in, because right now we've got a lot of cosmic rays coming in also,
and lower CMEs, lower class,
and it is blowing that ionosphere around in our electromagnetic field and distorting it. That is interacting with the magma core and causing it to move. It becomes excited.
It causes, as the ancients call it, it's a lubricating effect. It moves it more. And like I said, our land masses are floating on the earth. We are not completely attached to the core. There's magma between the land mass and the core. And as this magma moves, everything else moves where it's path of least resistance.
And it's increasing the volcanic activity as it's doing so. So we have to look at things as everything is connected. So whatever is coming at us from outside is interacting with our ionosphere, which is distorting our electromagnetic field, which is causing, it's interacting with the iron in the magma and causes that to move, which is exciting volcanic activity and possibly creating more earthquakes as well.
The tremors, earthquakes, the smaller earthquakes and the tremors, which happen constantly in these volcanics in the ocean or outside the ocean. But these ocean volcanoes are contributing to the ocean
Warming.
Well, the ocean patterns,
The ocean
current
currents.
patterns.
Yeah.
And
which is changing the weather as
changing
well.
the weather outside the ocean.
And so when you see, we've got La Nina or El Nino years, that's going to the temperature of the ocean and the air currents and the changing ocean currents is going to affect where that rainfall occurs. So that's going to change rainfall patterns, and dry areas may become drier, they may become wetter, they may start flooding, and you may have areas that traditionally got a lot of water that will become drier.
Yeah, and as you've noticed lately in the news, there has been at least 4, maybe 5, at least 7 magnitude earthquakes around the world.
It is really amping up.
Things are ramping up.
And so the question is, do underwater volcanoes also change ocean currents? And they said that, yes, that is a contributing movement. So
So,
now,
about the massive fires, what's
yeah.
causing, well, there are many causes of these fires. When the weather changes, which creates more lightning, so you got lightning fires.
but you've got severe drought and
You
all
got
these
severe-
trees
well,
that are dead.
Yeah, the trees that are dying, and lightning starts a fire, or you've got arsonists
Mhm.
that get a kick out of starting fires.
Kent's retired firefighter. So,
Or you've got old electrical lines, older, and they're not kept up.
Such
in
as
the wilderness,
PG&E.
but PG&E.
yeah,
And
on
and-
the West Coast,
and the
PG&E
lines,
is,
those lines could cause a fire. There's many causes of a very large fire. Now, a very large fire can get very much larger if they are ignored in the first 3 or 4 days or 1 week after some small amount of smoke, which means firefighters think, oh, we don't have to mess with that because that doesn't meet the requirements of sending somebody out there. Wrong. Any amount of smoke in a forest should be cause for alarm and send people there right away to contain it. If you don't, this is what happens to Northern California. This is what happened to many fires in California.
plus there was a period of time where they had abandoned their the fire mitigation
Right.
strategy
So-
and let everything become
Right.
overgrown.
So this is what
And now
caused-
you've got
yeah.
drought, severe drought. So you've got a lot of fire material there to burn. And the same in the Colorado Rockies, particularly over Wolf Creek Pass, where we were monitoring that. It went from 40%, our estimation, 40% of the pines were dead. And then that jumped to about 75, 80% of the pines dead in that area. And you start to see some new growth coming back, but that started from drought. And then from there, the trees become stressed, and that calls in the bark beetle, and they do the final job of killing off the trees. So that is a big tinderbox there, and that's only going to be a lightning strike away before that goes up as well. So
there are many things that we were given by the ancients as predicted, and one of them is made in 2007. And northern U.S. has rumbling. Well, that could mean
earthquakes.
In Washington or Oregon, and possibly Northern California, which there was some rumblings.
I think they even mentioned Montana in this. I didn't take the whole meditation or the whole reading on this. I just took a part of it. So I think Montana was even mentioned in this. The east is augmented by water and drought. So we believe they're talking about the eastern side of the U.S., that there will be areas that will be inundated with water while other areas have drought. And you saw the trees surging with fire,
which is happening.
Burn and arrive and arise. Again, this could be the tree bark beetle, and it could be other things as well.
They're killing the trees, right? So in October 2008, I got fire and water. Well, in the world today, Greece has huge fires, Turkey has huge fires, other countries have huge fires, the United States have huge fires, other areas have huge amount of water, China
flooding all
over Indonesia. I mean,
Turkey,
fire and
Germany.
water is going on everywhere around the world.
It is. The outside entity influence, I'm not sure what they mean by that, because I would say that they are not contributing to the fires.
No.
But the waters, they are starting to restructure the earth, and that is going to provide a new learning field for us as we enter into this new cycle of conceptual learning. So the earth is going to go through massive changes.
Reshaping the earth.
and water is a part of that. So perhaps this outside entity influence is like one of the more recent videos that we got, where we were told that these particular very intelligent beings were going to begin restructuring the earth. And part of that is there will be more land surface that will be covered by water, and it will be more tropical. It will be hotter. And there, of course, it's going to be a lot of flooding with that.
They have to do this in order for the human race to understand the universal laws that control basically all of the universe. I don't like to use the word control, that influence all the universe, and become a part of the universal family.
Mm-hmm.
We must get our act together.
So moving on, they're talking about a complete discharge of electromagnetic energy, remolding and reshaping Earth as now known. Part of that discharge of electromagnetic energy too is going to, like we mentioned earlier, is going to contribute to weather pattern changes. And there's also, I'm just going to interject this real quick. Man has been tampering with the atmosphere around Earth, with the HART program, with other things that we're doing. It's not just the United States, it's all over the globe. It's governments worldwide have been tampering with the atmosphere and the ionosphere, and it's causing an imbalance, and that has to be corrected also.
They're trying to weaponize the weather system.
Right.
Weaponize it against your enemies to slow them down.
So when we tamper with nature, eventually that imbalance has to be corrected. And I would have to say that it's not going to be pleasant when that happens. So be prepared for any scenario.
With that being said, March 2011, water being pushed up out of the Oregon coast. That's called a subduction zone that goes all the way from southern Canada. What is that?
Up
up
to
there.
just above San Francisco,
So down to just above San Francisco.
the San Juan de Fuca subduction zone.
Yeah. So with that, I think it might come out of there. I'm not sure, but it's being pushed up when water boils like out of a pot. And that could be volcanic. There's a lot of volcanoes up in that whole rim, the whole area. I'm thinking fires. I saw huge amounts of fires in Oregon and Washington and up along the north coast of California. So that's happened right now.
And then there's more predictions. In June of 2012, we got prepare for the changes for the wind. They talked about there would be a period of time when there would be high winds, different things coming. Then have the tools ready for the land, because these winds are really going to tear up the land, and the floods are going to tear up the land, and the earthquakes.
About the trees falling down and causing damage, and water.
All these changes
pushing the earth from one place to another, etc.
Yeah, so all these things are going to tear up the land. And so they're saying to have your tools ready so that when all this starts to settle down, then you can start doing your farming and recultivating the land.
Yeah, and I remember I saw lots of land being beaten up, and I saw a huge, keep seeing a lot of fire.
Mm-hmm. All over.
Yes, all over the world.
So they're telling us, give credence to what you have and what you can give. And so to me, that speaks of what can I offer if I have garden tools, what can I share into the community where we can come together to rebuild and to get food going again?
Yeah, so in August 2012, I keep seeing a big forest fire in the mountains in the canyon. Again, fire. And I don't know where, but it's large and mostly uninhabited by humans.
Mhm. And who knows where that is?
Yeah,
I
it's all
think
over the
most
world.
of these that they're talking about the US because we live in the US, but it is going on globally. In June 2014, we got fire will sweep the lands, many lost and overcome.
By the fire.
And then June 2019, everything being controlled. They're talking about humans. Even where the rain is going to be, nothing is natural now. Seeing a whole lot of forest fires, a whole lot, almost uncontrolled, they will burn longer. And so part of this is the fact that man is trying to control nature, and we're using it against each other in the form of warfare, and everything has to come back into balance. These are the repercussions of our actions, the actions of humanity.
So fires are forcing people out from where they think they should live.
And this was a recent meditation where I had asked, is there another reason for the fires besides the obvious? The obvious being severe drought and sparks coming off of PG&E lines, and people pulling over, their carburetors not working right, and they pull over on the side of the road, and the catalytic converter starts the fire. Those are all obvious, but is there another reason that's not so obvious? And it kind of surprised me. It was a warning of impending doom for these areas of concern. And they used this word obligatory function of these areas on this sphere. So it, to me, says that people who are living in areas where there's fire, there's more coming, probably, earthquakes, flooding, things along that line.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get us out of those areas. So maybe there is some sort of outside entity influence. I don't know, but it's hard for us to understand that being a positive thing, but there's something worse coming. So maybe the fire, will save our life further down the road as it pushes us out of those areas to relocate in other areas that may be safer.
Yeah. So with that, predictions for the Rockies as of August the 20th.
That was this morning.
2021.
So
effigy of the past, image of the past, forlorn is a bygone era. It's hopeless, sad, destitute, forsaken, for the word forlorn means. So say forsaken is a bygone era.
So this whole past is culminating in all of this imbalance, this total control over humanity, over the truth. It just goes on and on, over the environment. And so this is all going to be a correction and rebalancing and a reconstruction of the earth to set things anew for the new cycle.
Yeah.
And we're going to look back on all these events with images of the past that is a sad period of time.
Yeah, we have to forget the past. We can't be living in the past. And presumptive assessment is on the horizon.
And so I think what they're saying is that we're going to be assessing this whole thing. When they talk about something on the horizon, it's in the distant future, that we're going to be looking back on
Discussing
this
this whole
period of time
event.
and discussing what we did wrong, what changes were out of our control,
and things that we can make change.
what we
too.
could have changed. Those sort of things we'll be analyzing in the future.
Unusual words this morning, Ignatius will cease to exist, a rumbling of the rock. And I saw Colorado.
The
I saw
Rockies
the Rockies in
specific.
Colorado.
So Ignatius, they explain, is a complementary study of the Rockies. And I have to think that it's a study of the igneous rock there, which is formed by volcanoes, and simplicity is the cause. So, you know, the study of the Rockies and how they've been pushed up, there's just a simple, you know, this is what has been studied for years, but it is coming to a close because the Rockies are changing.
Yeah, the breaking of the conditions said 1,000 years ago, and I saw things in Colorado were kind of set in the people living there in the way they should live 1,000 years ago, and that's changed. That's changed completely now.
And then it may also mean a breaking of the conditions set 1,000 years ago, where these mountains came together, that they were pushed, these land masses pushed together and pushed land up and created those Rockies. And now that's all set to change. So that is up for anyone's interpretation. Time will always clarify for us. So a new word, forlocation, means before the light, and the light being the information or the knowledge, and forlocation of the cause. So before the understanding of the cause, optimal discovery. So again, it's something we're going to be studying in the future to bring clarity to why all these changes will be occurring.
Yeah, so as part of the restructuring of the Continental Divide, this is not the first time I got sometime several years ago, the splitting of the Continental Divide.
Yeah, so massive change. And then another word, appellacious. Now that word, the root word APL means simple. So appellacious is a simple discovery in the making, and it's time. And they're referring to this part, a part of the restructuring of the divide. I asked this question this morning: will this event create earthquakes unknown to us at this time?
And those create earthquakes, as they say, in diverse places, in places that normally don't happen. And different other places.
My intent of that question was, you know, we have a Richter scale that goes up to magnitude 10 as far as earthquakes. Is this something going to be of such magnitude that it is going to be greater than 10? This was really my intention. However, I did not express that. So they will answer the question literally how I did ask it. Will this event create earthquakes unknown to us at this time? So I probably should have worded that differently.
So we must prepare. We must prepare for volcanic activity, for earthquake activity, for CMEs, for all these different things that could. Massive flooding, asteroid incursion. There's different things.
Disruption in the food supply.
So have a go bag, basically, with the different preparations.
Now, we really want to stress, have stores of clean water. You can take empty bottles from juice or tea or whatever
or something that takes
bottled water.
They have a thermos that opens up like a thermos. It opens up, takes the sun's rays and heats the water. And this way you can take water that basically we should not drink, and
it'll purify it with the UV rays from the sun. It has to be filtered though to do that. So, you can store water in all kinds of unusual places, empty bottles, fill them with clean water from the tap, put them in your closets, under beds, and that sort of
And
thing.
take coffee filters to filter the water.
You may want to have coffee filters on hand to be
Or
able to filter water if it is an extended
Yeah, or
period.
that stuff you use, it's really lightweight, that you filter out your tinctures. When you make it your tinctures
Yeah.
and you put that in there, you crush it, and you filter, what's that called?
Are you talking about a French press?
No.
Coffee press?
So the fabric.
Cheesecloth.
Cheesecloth, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cheesecloth.
It's lightweight and you can use that as a filter.
Yeah. We're going to have a little bit of a
Not
show
cheese,
and tell.
but cheesecloth.
Yeah. I didn't put cheesecloth out, but
No.
I think most people know what cheesecloth is.
Yeah.
It's just like a gauze muslin,
Yeah.
very kind of a porous fabric made out of cotton.
Now, you need to be able to turn off your water supply when there's earth movement. Turn off your water supply and your gas to your house. If you don't have a turn off on water supply in your house, you need to put one on.
It's real important to know this before you get to an emergency situation. We
Yeah.
live in an area where we get hurricanes. And so we haven't lived here very long, but that being said, we've learned a few things when we have had hurricanes come through that are very important to making life easier and being able to survive at the same time.
Some of the things that we tell people to get, like we got it's called Anchor, I think. And it's a charger, small charger.
Hold it up here.
Okay, it's a small charger, charge your phones, and that can be gotten at Walmart or Best Buy or any place like that.
Let me, I'm going to take this off of this share screen here for a minute so we can open this up. We've got some examples. So what we found was during one of our events, we didn't have power for an extended period of time and couldn't charge our phones except in our cars. So these are very useful to have. They're at Walmart, and you can probably, you can order them online, Best Buy, that sort of thing. There's a range of charges. This one will hold 5 charges, and the price kind of coincides with the amount of charges you get out of it.
Now, the other thing that's important is you got to have light. And we not only have flashlights, but we have one here that you wind up, and just for a short period, this also has a radio, but it gives off light, and this also has a radio.
And some of these
listen
you
to the
can
news.
plug
Just by
into.
winding, you can give yourself enough light
Yeah.
to be able to keep yourself from panicking.
Yeah, and like I said, some of them have a rechargeable battery in
Yeah.
them, and they can be charged. Emergency radio is really important to have, and I believe this one,
Radio Shack, or a small place like Radio Shack.
this
and
one
this
also
also
can be wound
winds.
up,
Yeah.
and it has a flashlight on it.
Yeah,
It has an
flashlight.
antenna. At least you can get emergency warnings.
Yeah, you got a flashlight, and it's got emergency warning light, and it also have, it'll also run the radio, this has not only the FM, AM news, but also has the weather and what's going to happen. Now, this runs off of, runs off of solar, runs off of the power here, it runs off a battery. So there's 3 or 4 different things.
Wind up.
Yeah, wind up. So 3 or 4 different ways you can keep this going to keep yourself informed on what's going on.
Another really neat thing is
We
the
got this some
solar
years ago.
light bulbs.
Yeah,
And this is a company called Nokero, Nokero. And it looks like a light bulb. What you do is you basically just hang it outside on something during the day.
When the sunlight
Actually,
can charge
you
it this way.
turn it this way, and it has a solar panel on the top. And then at nighttime, you can bring it in and just hang it from something, and you've got a light bulb. So those are kind of a convenience item. Kent can talk to you about his feelings on candles.
I've been on enough fires with candles. But people ignite a candle and then they end up going to bed and not blowing the candle out, and the candle actually melts down. It causes a fire in the house and burns one room down and burns the whole house down. We had an experience.
I talked him into
Like that.
letting, he notoriously will not let me burn candles. And
Unless we were right there with the candle,
Yeah.
and then blow it out when you leave.
but we at one point had a hot tub, and I talked him into lighting candles in the house, and then we went out and got into the hot tub, come running in the house all wet, and it was cold. So we went running to the bedroom to change and get warm, dry off, and get warm, forgot all about the candles.
Yeah.
I got up the next morning and I had melted wax all over the carpet. And so I was frantically trying to clean it up before he got up.
To telling her, you don't.
Yeah.
Candles burn all night. So I mean, those are experiences that everyone, most everyone has had.
And you can attest to the fact that a lot of fires are started by candles. So
Yeah.
he doesn't recommend candles. I do have,
We have,
you know, this is a wine bottle that we cut the top off of, and there's a candle inside of it.
notice the candle is shorter than the wine bottle.
Yeah.
That's a whole lot more preferable.
And there's a space around it so that it does have somewhere to go. When the wax melts, it can go down inside and it's not going to spill, but you have to put it in a place that's not going to get tipped over. And then we suggest that you get stocked up on some foods that don't require cooking. And there's things as simple as protein bars.
And these have 21 grams of protein. These can be gotten at Sam's Club or probably the other place down there. Costco or Sam's
Walmart.
Club. Yeah. No, not Walmart,
Nuts,
but
things
Sam's
like
Club
that.
or Costco.
Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, you know, it's simple.
Yeah, and peanuts. You're gonna hang out and wait for things to change. You need peanuts that helps.
So Kent always says peanuts when he really means mixed nuts, but peanuts work too. Then there's things like this. Okay, this is put out by Seeds of Change, which actually they started out as a seed production company, and now have gotten into some of these prepackaged foods. It's already cooked. It's actually kind of squishy, and you don't necessarily have to heat it up. You could open the package and just eat it off the shelf. It does not require refrigeration.
Yeah.
And then you have things like this where, okay, this is mashed potatoes. This is not one of my favorite things. You know, all of these things usually have some sort of preservative in them that, and this one is organic. So yeah, this is certified organic. It's not going to have preservatives. This has preservatives. It does require some hot water, and you have to have clean water. So these are very good to have. And there's a number of those sort of products.
We keep these things in a 5-gallon in the bucket that we get either at
with a good seal, you know.
Yeah,
these,
it was used for icing and for food grade products buckets.
just visit your local grocery store, the bakery department. They have these buckets with lids, and not all of them have a rubber seal in them, like a ring type seal, but it's nice when you can get them.
Yeah.
When we lived in Colorado, there was a big demand for them, and they would charge $1 or $2 because there were so many people asking for them. But where we live now, nobody thinks about it. So when I go into the bakery asking for their used buckets,
They're more than happy to get rid of them.
well, they usually look at us
Yeah.
kind of strange, like, what are you going to do with that? Because it's all goopy with frosting or, filling
Yeah.
for cakes. Now, as far as hygiene is concerned, right now
This
is
is really important.
a really good time to get stocked up on your hand gel,
Now's the time.
masks, things like that, because this pandemic's not going anywhere soon. And these here, I think we paid what, 50 cents for
50
this?
cents, something like
You
that.
can find really good deals on hand gel right now. And as winter approaches, you're going to see that price go way sky high again, like it was last year.
Yeah.
Women, get stocked up on your female sanitary supplies, diapers for the kids. And then this is what I call my my improvised bidet. So
we get the kind even has the curved tip on
yeah, they make them with a longer tip that's angled off to the side. And so that makes it a little handier to reach certain areas for cleaning purposes after toileting. So just fill it with some warm water or water. It'd probably not be warm if you're out of power. Fill it with some water, and you can use that if you don't have toilet paper. So toilet paper is another good one to get stocked up on.
But when you do run out and you can't get any more, those are really will become in handy.
The one thing that we found when we were out of power for an extended period of time is that to flush the toilet, it takes huge amounts of water. And you will go through your water supply, the stores of water, and nothing flat, just trying to flush the toilet. So, there's that old saying, if it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down.
Yeah.
And that really applies to those periods of time when you don't have electricity. But I would also say stock up on large amounts of water.
Yeah.
You can have your water bottles, but it would really be advisable if you go down and get yourself a rain barrel, at least one, if not more.
If you have $99 to do that.
Yes, about $100. And a lot of them have a spigot at the bottom where you could hook up a hose to, but you can also use it as a faucet to just fill up a jug and take it in the house. And that way, that'll give you some more water to flush the toilet with.
They're about 50 gallons.
Yeah. And what we did was it's usually set up where it has like this grate at the top. It's more square, but it's a grate that has a little bit of a screen on top, but it's not going to filter small stuff. It's only going to filter like big leaves. And what we did was we just filled it with water out of the hose, filled it up, and we went down to the hardware store and got rubber gasket material. So it's this thin sheet of rubber, and we cut it to the size of that grate, took the grate off because it's on with little screws on it. Yeah. And took it off and put that rubber gasket on top, and then secured the grate back on top with the screws, so that water would remain filtered and relatively clean. We'll still put it through the the water filtering system. So there's a couple of water filtering systems out there. One is Berkey, and it does not require that you have to replace the filters every month. In fact, you can have a filter for like 5 years and not have to replace it. They're high density charcoal filter. It is a two canisters, one fits on top of the other. They're stainless steel and it has a spigot at the bottom. And their claim to fame is you can pour pond water in it and it'll filter out all the bad germs, and it still be safe to drink. You're going to have to, if you're pulling water out of a pond or something like that, you're going to have to filter it first for all that particulate matter before you put it in. And then the other thing is that there's another company that came out with a very similar product a few years ago called Aqua Pure. Same sort of thing.
Works the same way.
It's actually cheaper, and the filter also filters fluoride without having to buy an extra fluoride filter.
Yeah. So all these things need to go into a go pack that we talked about. Just put enough for your family and create this go pack that you need to keep on hand, and you know where everything's at. So if you need it, you don't have to be running all over trying to find different things.
Yeah.
It's all together.
And, you know, you need to have a backup plan in case you get flooded out, or you have a hurricane, or you have a tornado, because all of these scenarios are possible.
Volcanic activity.
Volcanic, earthquake activity. Have a backup plan where you can go to stay if your house is not livable or not safe at that time. Some other things that we want you to think about is you should secure your hot water heater with plumber's tape or hot water heater brace, so that does not, if you're in earthquake, that is not going to tip over.
Well, that's especially if you have gas hooked to your hot water heater.
And again, know where your hot water, your water main turnoff is, and the valve, and the gas, because we're told that gas lines will break, and that will cause even more fires too.
Moving breakables from the high locations. Well, I was telling Renee, you really can't do that so much because you don't know when this is going to happen unless you're given a warning that impending in the next week. So there's going to be an earthquake of such magnitude in a certain spot. Then you can move your things, but otherwise you have no idea when this is going to happen.
But
so don't get tied to those.
There are some things that you can do, and it's not so much the preservation of that item as it is the safety of it. However, we have a dear friend who has canned foods that are stored on top of the cabinets. And so if you don't want to lose your food supply, you need to take those glass bottles of food down and store them down on the ground somewhere, put them in the garage or something like that, so that you don't lose your food supply. So, now, have paper plates and plastic cups on hand, and toilet paper. The reason why we say plastic cups and paper plates is, well, if you have massive earth movement, dishes break. And you need, some sort of a backup for that.
Alternate toilet, you can have an alternate toilet, but you're going to have to find a discretionary place to go to the restroom.
You might want to form some sort of a hoop with loop a sheet around it or something like that. You can buy these 5-gallon buckets at Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart, and there's also in the camping section, there's a toilet seat and bags that will line those buckets that will fit on top of that 5-gallon bucket. They're made for that purpose. And so just check out like Walmart's camping section or Target online. You'll be able to find it. Keep your medications refilled
as much as you can. I know that you're a limited amount, so you can do the best you can with that.
and then stock up on bandages, betadine. I recommend betadine over hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide, it's cheap. That's the benefit of it, is you can buy it on sale sometimes as cheap as like 50 cents for a bottle. However, once you open it, it starts to degrade as soon as you open it, so that if it sits on the shelf for a year, it's really not going to be as very effective. The other thing is that it can cause damage to normal tissues, because it's pretty harsh on your tissues. Betadine does cost more. However, it'll last a long time, and you apply it and allow it to dry before you cover it. So it's during, it needs to sit there long enough until it's dried before it has done its job, and then you can cover it. And then basic medical supplies. It would help to have like an ACE bandage. You just don't know when.
There's only so much you can put in your thing, but like Neosporin.
Yeah, things to keep you from getting infected. If you have dishes breaking, you're going to end up possibly with cuts. You need to be able to prevent yourself from getting infected.
Because you don't want to get infected, because there won't be any physicians or doctors.
And flooding, when you have flooding issues, even during a hurricane and the flooding from that, what happens is that all this raw sewage gets swept up in that water, and it's highly contaminated, and there's a lot of chemicals in it. So if you've got any cuts, this is going to be a real source of contamination and infection, and you don't want to be fighting a massive infection during these times.
No. So you stock up on food that can be eaten without cooking.
So canned food, shelf stable food, and the other option would be to be prepared to cook on a barbecue. You gotta, if you use propane, you gotta be stocked up on propane. But if you have a charcoal barbecue, you can stock up on your charcoals.
But you can also use wood.
Yeah, if you have access to wood, you can put wood in your barbecue.
You can always get access to wood.
Not necessarily, not in big cities.
Well, not in big cities.
Not in big cities. And so or subdivisions that are fairly new.
But if you have, and also if you have canned foods, rotate it.
Yes.
After a while, don't just leave it sit for a couple of years.
I learned that lesson where I had stocked up on food for that day coming and thought it was going to arrive earlier than it is. And all that food went bad, and I had to throw a bunch of it out and start over again, which was total waste. So do date your food, do put the oldest stuff forward and rotate it so that you don't lose your valuable food supplies.
If you can have a 5-gallon of fuel. Gasoline available, but that also after like 90 days needs to be used and
replenished. So gasoline does go bad. It's good to have it in case your electricity goes out. If you have widespread electrical outages, maybe the gas station won't even be open. And so in that case, it would be really great to have that extra supply of gasoline on hand.
So we talked about the toiletry supplies, the diapers and things like that. Some bars of soap, etc.
The last thing that we want to discuss is most of us are keeping all of our contact information on our cell phones now. And when the cell phone battery is drained and we don't have the alternate charger and we don't have electricity, and it depends, everybody's situation is different. Most of us have a vehicle that we could charge it in, but we may be left in a situation where we don't have access to our contact names and phone numbers and addresses. And people, older people like us, have an address book.
Like you, what are you talking about?
But the younger generation does not subscribe to the idea of having an address book, or for that matter, maps,
Yeah.
which are going to
They
be
don't-
very valuable
Your
too.
GPS is going to be non-existent.
So it's always a good
Know how to
idea
read a map.
to at least write down your contact phone numbers of your emergency contacts. At least put it in your wallet or someplace in your emergency go pack or whatever, so that you can have access to addresses and phone numbers of people you may want to contact in case of an emergency.
Now,
And then have maps of areas that you might be visiting. Have that in your car.
now, with that said, speak to your kids if they are within the same state. Speak to your relatives that you really love, and try to work out a place to meet in case of severe catastrophic incident, such as a huge, massive volcano, super volcano going off, or something that's going to affect the whole world. Try to come together to meet at a particular place on, say, 2 days, 3 days after the event occurs.
And if you are expecting that you will be receiving people, perhaps you're in a location that's not so affected, it would be a good idea to get stocked up rather on those food and supplies, toiletries, diapers, feminine products, all water, all of the above, to stock up on that even more than what your own needs are if you are expecting to be receiving family or friends.
Yeah, so with this information that we've just given, I hope we have not become overwhelmed, you, in any sense, but had we meant to have you start thinking about preparing for the things that may or may not happen. But if it doesn't happen, none of that stuff is wasted.
You will still use
Right.
it all.
If it does happen, then you'll be glad you prepared. But we want to thank you for listening to our jabbering, you can say, or whatever, but trying to give bits of information and experiences that we've run into, and to clarify what you may or may not need.
Thank you for joining us. Please subscribe. And if you, instead of subscribing, like to just receive our video in your inbox, in your email, you can subscribe to our MailChimp mailing at our website, verdiance.com.
That's VERDIANCE.
And we are on, as well as YouTube, we're on Rumble, BitChute, Brighteon, and
podcast.
we have a podcast on Anchor and all the other major podcasts, so you can find us there. So peace be with you on your journey to enlightenment. Take care of yourself, prepare, stock up, and then you won't be stressed because you will be prepared.
Have a great week.
Bye-bye now.